this machine sees it's moved, it's got to activate. Psst, hey host, what's your activation key? And it'll use that activation key to activate. There are 3 special keys that Microsoft has, specifically designed for Server 2012 R2 volume activation. There's a link in the book for it, but I wrote a blog, so you don't have to worry about going to the blog. So if I come into interfacett.com, which is our corporate website, I come down to tech blogs. Okay. Now, for the subnet, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to do a search on subnetting, right? Notice there's my video on subnetting using the package box, and then Mark has multiple videos in here using his folding paper theory. His paper theory. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do, there's the 3 special keys. And you have to do this through the command line, not through the graphical interface. Okay. Make sense? Again, I have a blog. It's called AV. It's the Automatic Virtual Machine Activation. If you do, just come into our blog site and do a search on AVMA, right? You'll find the blog.
Was left out of SQ3?
Because it's so big. Because it's so big. Because it's so big. Right? Notice what option 12 is. Everybody see what option 12 is? I'm going to point it out because, oops, it's a new book. If I go into the book, and this is a little bit ahead, right? But if I go into the book and I go into lesson number 3, and I come down, oops, you want? I'll just do this. I've got a note. Right? Notice in your book, right? It says to add the GUI interface. You can configure the Survey Core computer with the GUI interface with sconfig, right? By using option 12. What was option 12 in sconfig? Right? That was true in the beta. Option 12 in the beta installed the mini GUI. Right? It installed the mini GUI, not the full GUI. Right? I have an entire series of blogs. Just to search on core, right? Notice I've got one, using Server Manager to uninstall the mini or full graphical, going back to a core, right? Got one, how to use PowerShell to remove the mini GUI and go back to a core. Using PowerShell, right, to convert the mini GUI to a full GUI. Using PowerShell to convert the full GUI, right, back to core. Using PowerShell, right, using DISM, right, to convert the mini GUI to a full GUI, right, to convert full GUI back to or core back to full. So I've got a whole series of blogs up here because there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing it. F12 is not the correct answer. Okay. Make sense? If I'm on a core box, and I want to install a roller feature, the easiest way to install a roller feature is not DISM. DISM stands for Deployment, Imaging, Servicing, and Management. That's what DISM is. That's not the easiest tool. The easiest tool is PowerShell. Right? Then I do a get-Windows feature. Come on. This shows me all the Windows features that are installed. Now, if I want to add or remove a Windows feature, I just simply got to type whatever's over here on this side. And I will show you that as we go through the week. when I install DHCP and I install DNS as the week goes on, I'm going to show you how to install it through PowerShell. I hate DISM. I hate DISM. Here's why. Give you an example. Right? That's an example of DISM. Right? I got to use DISM. I got to determine which WIM file I want to use. Then I have to come down, right? And I have to know the entire DISM command. Oops, that's using PowerShell to install it. Find a good one. Here we go. Yep. Right? Again, that's getting the content. Then coming down. Before you can use DISM, you got to mount the installation media. Right? Got to mount it. There's the command for mounting it. Then once you mount it, there's the command for installing, for adding it. Well, that's really self-explanatory, isn't it? Get dash Windows feature, right? Install dash Windows feature, name of the feature. The heck with DISM. In the exam, how you doing, James? You'll never ever get asked to write a DISM command. What you might get asked is, what are the tools you can use to add or remove a feature? Server Manager, PowerShell, and DISM. Keep in mind, if you use DISM, you got to mount it first. Everybody good with that? All right, Server Manager. I've already showed you Server Manager. One of the things I haven't showed you in Server Manager, Server Manager by default is scheduled to launch automatically when you log in by default if you logged in as an administrator. Some things you can do with Server Manager is down here where it says all servers, I can add additional servers that I want to administrate with Server Manager. So I can come in, add a server. I can query Active Directory. And let's say I want to do server 1. Server 1's just not booting up, so it may not be up all the way. Right? I can then add server 1 to my environment. Now when I install a roller feature or remove a roller feature, or I want to manage it through Server Manager, I can manage it, right, that server, through this machine. This is something I couldn't do prior to Server 2012. The other thing I get in Server Manager, because this machine is a domain controller, I get a quick look at my Active Directory Domain Services logs. I'm a DNS server, so I get a quick look at my DNS server logs. So when you got roles and features installed, you'll see those down the left-hand side. Because I've chosen to manage, right, run SRV1. I added it. Whatever's installed in it will also show up on the left-hand side here. If I go back to my dashboard will show me, right, the stuff that I've got managed in my servers. Now I'm guaranteeing here that this is my Google updater that's aired out. Yep, nope. Run server 1 never authenticated. It's still got things that are starting up. Those will eventually will go green because they're automatic, they're delayed starts. All right. Questions? There's a thing called a best practice analyzer, a BPA. If I come down to my local server, right, this is the content you saw a few minutes ago. Right? I walked you through this. If I scroll down, this will give me a quick look of the event viewers for this server. I scroll on down. It shows me the status of my services are running. I also have a thing called a Best Practice Analyzer, or BPA. What this allows me to do is certain rules and features have Microsoft's BPAs. So when I run it, it'll go out and query the machine, determine the services and the processes that are running. Then it'll come back and tell me whether or not I have rules or features that should not be on this machine based off the rules and features that are on it. It'll come back and recommend those services or processes that I should set to disable based off of Microsoft's best practices. Questions? Do you want to show you live then in there? Jonathan, you got a question? Yeah. It won't, there's no impact. All it does, it comes back and asks you and tells you whether or not you should or should not install specific roles or features, right? No, so, as an example, you should never have RIS on a domain controller. But you can put RIS on a domain controller. So I run the best practice analyzer against the DC. It's going to come back and recommend that I either move the domain controller or I move IIS. Right? So it's going to be based off of Microsoft's best practices from that standpoint. Or let's say you have something running and Microsoft's best practices to have the XYZ service disabled. It'll come back and recommend that based on the fact you have this role installed, we recommend that you take away this role or feature or take away this service. It won't do any configuration. It comes back with recommendation now. There is an option when it comes back that says configure now, and it will configure whatever the recommendations are, but most of the time we just use it as recommendations. And to answer your question, Jonathan, right, about grammatical errors and incorrect data, I have no idea why F12 is still there for, because it hasn't been that way since 2011. So 5 years that data has been wrong. In 5 years they haven't taken it out of the book. So I can't answer why it's not there. And that's the reason why, I know you know that about good enough, that's the reason why a lot of times I will annotate in the book, not correct. But here's the problem. When you go take the exam, here's the issue. The people that write the exams may not have any practical knowledge whatsoever of the material. Right? Have no practical knowledge of the server. So the only thing they have when it comes to writing an exam are things like this book. Okay? Things like this book. So the person doesn't know any better about Server 2012 Core not having the F12 option anymore in sconfig. If they don't know that and all they know is the book, guess what? F12 is going to be on the exam. So if F12 is on the exam, you're going to choose it. If F12 is not on the exam, the only option is PowerShell or DISM. But if F12 is on the exam, what was that? If the exam is updated, F12 would never be on there. If the exam is updated, F12 would never be on the exam. If the exam has not been updated to represent real life, F12 could be on the exam. And again, I'm just the messenger. I have I don't write the exams. Right? I just point out to you when you're going into real world, right? I don't want you to go into the back of the office and say, oh yeah, Rick says you can hit F12 from sconfig and we can just go from core to graphical that easy. And then someone goes, oh yeah, look, where's F12? Right? F12 was there in the beta and the beta only. And only in 2012, not in the 2012 R2 content. Right? Make sense? I know that's a almost like a cheap way out, but that's the only thing I can answer. Administrative tools. We still have administrative tools on the start menu, right? We still have administrative tools on the start menu. This is the start menu, by the way, the new start menu. We also got the administrative tools through this tools drop-down menu. So any tool that's in the administrative tools is also here. What you'll see here is based off of the roller feature you've added and whether or not you've installed the associated admin tools with it. And this will be more evident in the next module, or in 2 modules. I'm not going to do that because you do that in the lab. Now, I love this. We've all seen services before, right? Okay. We've all seen services before. This is not new. Double click on a service. That shouldn't be new. Click on log on. That shouldn't be new. Well, I'm going to do something here real quick. I need to click on that. So what's new? If I click on recovery, there's a brand new option. Under recovery, if any one of these first, second, or third subcode failures, I set it to restart the computer. There's an option to enable this action for stops with errors. Restart the computer. You can have it send a message to the user before the machine restarts. That's what's new. Right? That's the whole reason for popping this screen. Right? Is that one box. This checkbox right here is new. Oops. This. You gotta love these boards. Here's why. I can teach on these boards for 3 weeks and never have to calibrate. But have to calibrate every single time I write on them in another class. I have the exact same image. Let's try this again. Right? New in 2012 R2. You might get a question that shows you the services tab on general, and it'll say, using your crosshairs, which tab would you configure a message to the users that their machine is going to restart? They won't show you that, right? They'll just say, on which tab would you choose to set to send a message to the users that their their machine's going to restart? Okay, can you see a question like that? All right, I'm going to take a snapshot of the screen. So this screen is in your notes. Okay. Don't you dare crash on me. Don't you dare. Okay. It crashed. what's funny is the text will be there, but the picture won't. See?
Oh.
There we go. All right. So questions about that checkbox. That's the only reason why they put that slide up there. The rest of the services is exactly what you've seen in the past. We talked about remote management. Remember I demoed that a few minutes ago? Any questions about remote management? A whopping 7 slides for PowerShell, of which 2 of them are demos. Right? I can't even scratch the surface with PowerShell. Right? PowerShell is Microsoft's new command line interface. Now, real quick, show of hands. Who's worked with PowerShell before? 1, 2, 3. Right? Matthew, have you worked with PowerShell before?
I'm sorry? A little bit.
A little bit. For the remotes, thank you, Jonathan. Chris or Gordon, have you worked with PowerShell before? All right. Okay. Chris was in it last month. Cool. All right. PowerShell is Microsoft's new command line interface. Rumor had it for years back in the days of NT4.0, or I'm saying Windows 2003. In 2008, there's going to be this brand new interface. There's not going to be no graphical interface. You need to learn PowerShell. If you don't learn PowerShell, you're going to be screwed. Well, guess what? We got a graphical interface. Then 2008 came out, right? 2008 came out and said, you need to learn this thing called the Server Manager CMD, and if you don't learn the command line utility for Server Manager CMD, you're going to be screwed. Server 2008 R2, they deprecated it. They took it away. But you need to learn PowerShell. There's not going to be no graphical interface in 2012. If you don't learn PowerShell, you're not going to have a job. Guess what? Graphical interface is still here. 2012. You got to learn PowerShell. If you don't learn PowerShell, you're going to be behind the power curve, and you won't be able to manage Server 2012 R2. Right? Guess what? Still there. Well, I went to lunch with a buddy of mine on Friday. He's really, really into PowerShell. Right? He started the Phoenix PowerShell users group. He's a PowerShell MVP with Microsoft. He's an evangelist for PowerShell with Microsoft. If you don't learn PowerShell for 2016, Rick, I got to tell you, you're going to be behind the power curve because there's not going to be a graphical interface. I've already seen it. There's a graphical interface. Now, there's this brand new thing in Server 2012 called the Nano Server. Right? I think it was Jonathan said he was at Ignite last year. Right? The Nano Server is this really, really big thing. Right? It's part of Server 2012. Yes, it has no graphical interface. The only way to manage it is through PowerShell. Whether or not people are going to adopt it or not, still up in the air. I will warn you, right? If you've not started working with PowerShell and you have been playing with PowerShell, you need to start, right? Eventually, you're going to end up behind the power curve or in PowerShell if you don't start now. The Microsoft's concept of writing the new PowerShell courses is, in the new PowerShell courses, they don't even cover the basics anymore. They start right off with, bam. Because their thought process is, if you've been in this industry, you should already know the basics of PowerShell. Right? We have a 5-day class going on right down the hall right now. It's called Introduction to PowerShell. Right? There's no way I can cover what's in that content in this class. Right? As the week goes on, every time I do something, I'm going to show you how to do it with graphical interface, command line interface, and PowerShell. Right? I'm going to show you all 3 ways. Okay, I am by far nowhere near being a PowerShell ninja. I was one of those ones back in 2008 when they said learn PowerShell. I'm like, no, stop, no, right? I'm a graphical guy. Always have been. But where does PowerShell come in handy? Right? If I'm doing onesies, twosies, right? Graphical interface. Repetitive things, PowerShell, by all means. By all means. I'll be giving you guys some scripts on Friday. We'll talk about it as the week goes on. I got a script that goes out, and you've got an organization unit where you've got 1,000 employees in it, and when they added them all using a bulk import tool, and the idiot that typed in the department misspelled the department, now you got to go correct the department on those 1,000 users. Could I right-click properties, right-click properties, right-click property? Yeah. But why not just go grab all 1,000 users and bam, change them all? Or we'll see in module number 4, right? There's a bulk import tool, right? I'm sorry, module number 4. There's a bulk import tool that I can import thousands of users into my Active Directory database from a commonly limited file. But it can't do passwords. Now I need to set passwords. Do I want to right-click on those 1,000? Right-click, new password. Right-click, new password. Right-click. No, I use PowerShell. So PowerShell is phenomenal for doing those things that are repetitive. Right? Even the guys and gals that are PowerShell ninjas, you know, onesies and twosies, by all means, graphical. It's going to take longer to learn the commandlet than it would to take you to do it in the onesies and twosies. Couple things that you need to keep in mind when it comes to PowerShell. Right? PowerShell. The biggie is every PowerShell commandlet, CMDLETS, commandlets, right? Commandlets. Every PowerShell commandlet is 2 components. Verb, a dash, a noun. Every PowerShell commandlet is a verb dash noun. Let's think about it for a second. You want to retrieve some information about something. What do you think the verb is? Get. You want to configure something, what would the verb be? It's actually only 3 letters. Set. Right? You want to create something. No. You want to delete something. Remove. You want to install something. Install. You want to uninstall something. Uninstall. Okay. You want to, wow, that's about it. You want to start something. Start. You want to stop something. Stop. You want to pause something. Pause. You want to resume something. Resume. So the verbs are fairly straightforward. Right? The verbs are fairly straightforward. Well, I cheated right there with set. Right? The verbs are fairly straightforward. Now, what may not be straightforward is the noun. Right? Now, one of the things about the noun is, and this throws everybody for a loop, we call things like processes. In PowerShell, it's process. Right? Right? We call them services. In PowerShell, it's service. Right? Everything in PowerShell is the singular form of whatever the noun is. It's never the plural form. Right? In PowerShell, the noun is always singular. It's never plural. Right? Every PowerShell commandlet has an associated help file with it. Right? That is very, very, for lack of other words, amazing. When you want to find out how to use a PowerShell commandlet, use the help file for that PowerShell commandlet. Right? Remember, DOS had a kind of cheesy help system? The help system in PowerShell is phenomenal. But here's the gotcha. For whatever reason, in Server 2012, putting the PowerShell help system into the operating system when you build it was considered bloatware. You were bloating the operating system. So PowerShell, even though it's installed by default on your Server 2012 and 2012 R2 box, the help system is not there. So the first thing you have to do is you have to install the help system from Microsoft. The first time you launch PowerShell, it's going to ask you, do you want to update the help system from right? And if you choose no, that's the only time you ever get that prompt. The first time you use it. Okay. So how do you update it if you chose no then? Right? Update-help. Right? The help system actually has a help system about itself. So the help system for PowerShell is phenomenal. So the first commandlet that you should run, right, to learn PowerShell is, right, get dash help on get dash help. Okay? So you run the help system on the help system. So to give you an example, right, I'm just going to go into my box here. Right? So if I come into PowerShell, let me change the font here, make it a little bit bigger. Okay. One of the things you're going to get used to with PowerShell is PowerShell wraps around. Right? For a lot of people, that messes them up. So, Gordon, you have to leave. You said a bad word in my class. Right? Novell. How dare you use that word in my class? I bleed blue. No, just joking. So if I come in here, if I'm in DOS, right, how do I go back in a directory? Right? CD backslash takes me all the way back, right? What does CD dot dot do? CD dot dot takes me back one level. Of course that works in PowerShell. CD backslash, of course that works in PowerShell. If I want a directory listing, how do I get it? In DOS. dir, of course that works. Right? And if I'm in, right? Oh, but how do I get a directory listing if I'm in Unix, Linux, Red Hat? OS, of course that works. Because PowerShell is the best of both worlds. Now, those commands that I'm using are not actually commandlets. Right? Those are just straight DOS commands. They're what's known as an alias. So if I want a listing of all the aliases, what do you think the commandlet would be? Nope. How did I retrieve information about something earlier? What command? Get dash alias. Now, here's what's cool. There's this thing called tab complete. Okay. Right? I just start the first couple hit tab and a tab completes them for me. There's all my aliases with the appropriate PowerShell commandlet. How slick is that? Now, notice dir, reality was an alias for get dash child item. ls was an alias for get dash child item. How'd you clear a screen in right? CLS. Well, CLS is an alias for clear dash host. Right? Remember I did a CD dot dot? CD, set dash location. Make sense? All right. Now, if I do this in DOS, what will happen? 2 plus 2. What would happen? What would happen in DOS? You come back and say, what you talking about? What if I do this? What's the answer going to be? Ten. Remember, right? The order of amperands in mathematics? It's going to do the 2 times 4 plus first, and then add the 2. What if I wanted the 2 plus 2 to be done first? Right? That's important, because if I do something like this, right, that lists all the commands. Right? Right? That lists all the commands. But if I do something like this, right? Make sense? Now, PowerShell Bubba's above X just rolled over in the grave when I did that. That's so old of doing it that way. That's so old school doing that way. New school. The pipe command. Measure dash object. Okay. Makes sense? So far, so good? I want to get status for all my services. Right. There's all my services with the status of whether or not the service is running or stopped. Now I can do a pipe and they say, only show me those statuses that are running, or only show me those statuses that are stopped. Make sense? Yeah. I'm not going to show this video in class, and the only reason I'm not going to show you this video in class is because it's very choppy to the remote students. If you do a search in our blogs for PowerShell, and it's going to be really, really early on, actually, you know what? I'm going to do it a different way. There's a better way. I'm going to do tech blogs. I'm going to come down to instructors. I'm coming down to Jason Hummick. Right? And if you go all the way down, he has a video. Is that it? Nope. It's an introduction into PowerShell. It's a phenomenal video. There you go. Learning PowerShell for IT admins. And it's not that long of a video. Right? But what we've done here is they take the videos and they actually transcribe them into screenshots. Right? But he does an awesome in just taking the fear out of PowerShell in the beginning. Right. So far, so good? Now, let's say I don't know what the command is. I know there's got to be a command out there dealing with services. Right? I do get-help service. Right? And it comes back and shows me, here's all the commandlets that deal with service. Set-service is the command I want to use. Get-help, set-service. And it shows me how to use the service. Now notice, it says, I can't find a help system. Why? I didn't populate the help system on this machine. So I want to use the help system. So I'm going to update help real quick. Yeah. When I install a role or feature on the machine, it installs what's called a manifest. In Server 2008 and Server 2008 R2, the manifest wasn't usable until you imported that manifest into the PowerShell environment. In Server 2012 and 2012 R2, you may or may not have to import the manifest. Right? Oh, you got everything but workflow. So if I come up and I do this again, right? Notice there's more content in there on how to use help service or get set service. Some of the manifests automatically import, some of them don't. Now I'll give you an example. There are 27 commandlets for network load balancing. When you install the network load balancing service, it adds the network load balancing manifest. But it doesn't import it into PowerShell by default. Before you can use the network load balancing PowerShell commandlets, you have to import the manifest so you get the module. to determine what modules or manifests are available. You do a get dash module dash list available, and this will show you what roles and features are installed on the machine and what manifests are available based off of what roles and features are installed. Make sense? So there's all the roles and features. Questions? So looking at the slides, right? Again, right? Again, your most common commandlet you're going to use is get-help. Get-help. If I were going to read a book on PowerShell, there's 2 books that I would read. I'll bring them in. When you guys go to the lab, I'll go get them. There's one called Learning PowerShell through a month of lunches. It's an awesome book. And the other one I use is written by Don, Jeffrey Hicks. It's Administrating Active Directory using PowerShell. Those are the only 2 books that I use. The only 2 books that I use. Right, and I'll bring them both in during break. When you guys go in the lab here in a few minutes. Right? I did that. The PowerShell ISE, right, integrated scripting engine. Right? The integrated scripting engine. You'll see this a little bit later. This is where you actually write scripts. The PowerShell interface, the command line interface, we use that to write one-liners, to execute something. If I want to write a script, I use the PowerShell integrated scripting engine. In Server 2008 and 2008 R2, the ISE was not installed by default. In Server 2012 and 2012 R2, it's installed by default. So if you type in PowerShell, you'll get PowerShell space ISE. Never use the 32-bit version of PowerShell or the ISE. Not all the commandlets work. Always use the 64-bit version. The top half is where you write the scripts. But then when you run them, they'll execute in the bottom. You also have the ability to run one-liners in the bottom if you want to test something. Over here, this is new in 2012. This is every one of your PowerShell commandlets. So you can actually find a PowerShell commandlet, double-click on it, and it will add it to your actual syntax. You actually also have the ability, if it has parameters, you can fill in the parameters, and then when you hit copy, it copies it into the script with all the appropriate parameters. And I will show you that a little bit later when we get into creating objects in a later module. The last thing is this thing called desired state configuration. This by itself is a 5-day standalone class. This is what you use to build nano servers, DSE, right? What the desired state configuration does for us is I can pre-stage these PowerShell environments of how I want machines configured. And then I execute the PowerShell command or the PowerShell code, and it configures that machine exactly the way I desire it to be built. Jason also has a video up on our blog site on DSE or DSC, right? That goes in a little more detail. But from the standpoint of the 410 course and the 410 exam, you just have to know DSC exists. You don't have to do anything with it. You just have to know it exists. Right? Questions about the DSC? You have the ability to, not really dry run, Jonathan, but you have the ability to go in and debug. They have, what Microsoft does have is there's a PowerShell switch called What If. What If. And what you would do is you would add the What If switch to each of your lines of code, and then it would come back and tell you what would have happened if you would have ran the code without the What If switch. All right? Questions about DSC? Again, we're going to see more in PowerShell as the week goes on. There is a lab, right? There is a lab. This lab should take you to about 3 o'clock. Then we'll start module. We're exactly where I'm at every class, right? This module always takes a little bit longer to get through for whatever reason, right? And it's Monday. We'll get partially through module number 2, right? And then we'll come in and finish up module number 2 in the morning. Module 2 is, I teach almost all of it off of one slide. But you have a lab. In this lab, you're going to be using the online lab environment, right? You're going to deploy a 2012 R2 server. You're then going to configure a core box, right? You'll then use Server Manager to manage a server remotely. And then they have a series of PowerShell commandlets they're going to have you run in exercise 4. Right? You have from now till 3 o'clock to do the lab. Keep it in mind, right? When you're installing in exercise 1, you have to use your mouse, or you have to use the keyboard for the install. You don't have mouse capabilities. When you finish the install, let me know so I can install the drivers for you. Did you get access yet? What's it still saying? All right, I'll go back and see Denise. Right. I want to make sure she didn't set you up a new account. She may set you up a new account, but I'll go make sure. You're using the Labs on Demand up in the remote lab. There's a remote in the file transfer or file download. And you probably need your login information. Okay, then once you do the pre-class lab, you should see the rest of the labs there. Yeah, once you do the pre-class lab, Jonathan, you should then go down, you should see deploying and managing the servers, so you got an option to launch the lab. I'm sorry, Gordon, not Jonathan. If you scroll down, you don't see deploying the lab, the word launch.
I don't have a launch button on any of them. Yeah, mine in.
Okay, I will be back. Let me go in the back and take care of that. All right, it looks like everybody's getting the same issue. Let me go back in the back and find out from Christy what's going on. I may have to call tech support. I'll be right back.
Didn't launch the pre-class lab.
Sweet.
Like, you know what? I almost.
Early. The test lab worked. Doesn't mean any good, but it worked.
Well, it just says that you must complete the following activity before the start of your class, so maybe that's the only thing I can see that
Yeah,
it's not done.
I ran this one and it worked fine, but
Yeah, they may not as well.
We're already here. All right, you guys should have a blue launch. You may have to refresh the screen. There you go.
now I do.
We're doing maps, okay. Doing maps. Oh, you're doing one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so all right, you just picked up. Cool. He went down the list alphabetically. Right. Now you should be ready to go. They forgot to put you from the requested status to enroll status. Because they built all the accounts last week. All right, Trey, here you go. Yes.
These tasks.
Mm-hmm. Yep, when you click on there.
Just read it. Read it.
Well, that's the orientation. You don't need to do that test lab. So go ahead and cancel out of this.
Cancel.
Yeah, just hit exit. And then cancel out. You're going to start with lab 1.
How do you start?
You have to refresh your screen. And you'll then have a, you're going to close that window. Scroll down. There you go. Refresh your screen. You'll have a watch button. There you go. Then watch.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they requested your lab, but they forgot to, this morning they get them early. Because your labs, your 6 months doesn't start till the day you enroll, which is today. Oh, that's scary. Sony has filed for a patent for a contacts lens camera that you wear as a contact and you snap the picture by blinking. That definitely sounds like an invasion of privacy.
Before we get too far on this, can you tell me if I skipped something on here? 'Cause I'm already down to here, and then I don't have the check mark for these guys.
You gotta check it, you gotta put it done.
Ah, that's what. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
They're already trying to make software for Google Glass so that they can integrate facial recognition into its recording feature.
Mm-hmm.
On a daily basis, you could, instead of recognizing people organically, you'd be able to pull up their information through facial.
Yeah, that's scary.
And then they came out with the panel camera, which just looks like a wall panel. And you can literally have a surface of the wall now, which is now any point of its it's viewing.
I haven't seen that.
You can basically have a room now with full 360 degree, well, besides the floor, but at almost full coverage.
Yep. All right, for the remote guys, because I don't see the screen, if you guys have a question, make sure you just speak up.
What was the stuff in here where you needed to install that for?
How did you get the operating system installed? You ready?
I believe so.
Are you back to the
I'm
login
back to the
screen?
administrator login screen.
Okay.
Hey, Rick, I'm having a problem here.
All right, hang on a second. I gotta help out Matthew here. Take control. Oops, do that. Cancel. ActiveX. Oops. Well, helps if I'm in the right operating system. I told you guys not to run it in Chrome, and what I do? I launched it in Chrome.
What not to do in class?
Yeah.
Oh, light stuff to it.
What's that?
I don't know where.
All right, I'll be right there. Let me take care of Matthew first. Also,
Oh, that's my fault. I didn't use that.
you didn't follow the lab?
No, that's my fault. I didn't see the password on the bottom there.
All right, log in.
I can start over.
No, just log in.
There's some stuff right there.
Next. What kind of problem you having, Lee? Lee,
Yes.
what kind of problem you having?
I'm just starting all over. I don't know where
Are you in Learn on Demand?
what's that?
Are you in Learn on Demand? Are you on the online labs,
Yeah.
right? Did you click launch?
Yes, I did. I just
Right.
restarted again.
Okay. All right.
We have to wait for you to activate the keyboard. Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Okay, release control. All right, it's all yours.
Thank you.
All right, let me help Lee out here real quick.
Yeah, so you're starting now.
Okay, so it'll be a few minutes. All right. Control. Machines. Add that. Okay, it's all yours when it comes back. Yep. Control. Machines.
Okay, we'll come back up.
Okay. Yeah, if you look on the right hand side where it says content, they get you instructions on how to, what the steps to do. Down the right hand side.
Yeah.
So it'll have instruction right hand side and then the actual steps across the bottom of the screen.
So it starts with the selected machine is out and the
Yep, yep. Yeah, just follow the instructions down the bottom of the screen. Yours is done. So thank you.
Yes or no?
Yes. So you see it, and then the instructions are right here. And the next step, and the instructions are right there. Step, and the instructions are right there.
So I need to.
Come right there. Okay, and click done. Oh, you're going to click yes. Then you click yes. You're going to click the icon.
Same there.
Yep. Yeah, click on the icon, make sure the DVD's installed. And then click done. Get past the. There you go. Oh, you didn't click the, go back to the previous step. Back to the previous step. And click on it, I'll get it in there. You're in clicking. Okay. Now go and restrict the box and click to 2 minutes. Get your release your mouse when you're using those. you go.
And we're supposed to tell you for the drivers, right?
Are you done installing?
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's server manager.
right. You want to take control?
I'm still stuck at step 1, Rick.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. Rick,
Yes.
I don't know what's going on.
You're welcome. You do the lab? Okay. Expand that. Plus, there's all your steps.
It goes next, right?
Yep. Yep. No, you can just click on here. Right your next step. Right, so you started it, so hit done. Okay, verify preferences. Right, it tells you here what you need to set it to. Now see the little icon, this little guy right here. Click on him. It tells you what that should be set in there. Okay. And it's yep. So you gotta use all three.
Okay.
Who said they were ready for remotes?
I can't get to load the optical media.
Okay, yep. Yeah, you can't. I have to do that. Who was that just said that?
Gord.
All right, let me bounce to your machine, Gordon. Machines. I'm going to take control. I'll put it in manually for you. Reset. Yes. See that? Yep, it's in now.
Okay.
There you go. Just release control.
Okay. Thank you.
Jonathan, you want me to take control so I can fix your mouse, or did you do it already? Okay. Good job. Yep. It's just hard to do from your end. So, as long as you got it, that's great. Okay.
Oh, okay. There we are.
Cool. So this will have for you then. Chris, how are you
Thanks for having problem here.
I don't see a start button. Am I supposed to see one?
Who was that? Gordon?
Gord.
Let me go back to your machine. You've already started it.
Oh, I have? Okay, so I
Yep.
should be on step 3 now?
Yep. And then when you look at a little head, it's got the exclamation mark in it.
Yeah.
All right, that's where you're at.
Rick,
What's up?
I don't know what's going on.
All right, Chris, I'll fix your mouse here in just a second. What's up?
I'm doing all these tasks, but do I just do it right here? I don't do nothing up here?
No. And then you hit done. They want you to verify those settings. Right? You hit done. Oh, when you're, again, doing the steps. Go back up here. Go back up here. Verify preferences. Right? Then once it says, no. Yeah, then it says then click next. So you click next.
One's doing the same thing.
Oh, you know what? I bet I forgot to release control. Let me see. I don't think I have control of your guys' boxes. Nope, I don't have control of yours, Lee. I don't have control of yours. Let me see if I hit next. Let me see if it lets me hit the next.
Yeah, I can't hit next on mine.
Oh, remember, there's no mouse. You gotta use keyboard.
I've been trying to use one here.
Right? Remember, you have tab. There's no mouse.
Gotcha.
You gotta use keyboard. So tab,
Gotcha.
tab. Tab. Keyboard. Right. Where I said during the install, you have no mouse. You hit enter. Install that. No. It is. Just hit enter. There you go. Now starting the install. Oops. Hit escape. You need to restart. So go up to your commands to restart the box. Restart.
We're just doing the first one, the server
What's that?
server core install. We're just doing the top one.
Nope, it tells you in the lab which one to book install. It's down in the lower left-hand corner. It tells you which one to actually go install. And the virtual machines are not connected to the internet, Jonathan. I just saw you that. And Chris, let me see where you're at, Chris. Chris, are you done with the install? Yep. I'm going to take control of your machine, give you your mouse back. right, Chris, when it boots back up, you will have your mouse back. There you go. I heard a heavy sigh. You missed your mouse, didn't you?
I clicked the wrong one.
Uh-oh.
Trying to go back, but no mouse.
Who's that?
Gord.
All right, let me go see what you. I have a mouse, so I can go back. What you need fixed?
I need to go back and select the OS.
Okay. Let me. What? Text controls. Control. Okay. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Come on, release my mouse. All right, I'll be right back. Let me run you back real quick.
Space. Tab space.
These are the mouse.
Tab and space. Tab. Tab and choose.
I've got it now.
Space to select. C-spot.
Space tab.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to go help another instructor. Tab over. You got it okay? Hit your enter key. No, you hit your enter key. There you go. That's your host machine here, escape. Yeah, that's your host machine. I think you installed the wrong operating system. Yeah, you're supposed to install the data center. Do that stuff right here. Down here, tells you. Yep, sounds right. Data sandwich with. You just need new test. You set to redo and reinstall and you're set to go. Nope, hit cancel, hit escape. Get ready for me to go in your box. We gotta face that. All right, Gordon, thanks. Remember I said, this lab today is the most frustrating of the labs because it makes you go back to something you haven't done in eons. When was the last time you installed an operating system keyboard? Did you say last night? Come on, release my. Okay. Release my mouse, there we go.
I like the terminology uses activate Windows login. Press Control.
Control delete. And Jamal, you also installed Illinois. You installed the core instead of the graphical. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and restart you. Oops. Yeah, you're supposed to, on this step right here, it said to install the data center. Oh, it says step 5.
Oh, okay.
State data center graphic. So it's restarting now. Oops, I got the wrong CD in. Let me change CDs. And I just released control. So that's back to you.
Can I just push escape on this one?
No, just do go up to commands and say restart. And I'll take control and restart for you. There you go. Go ahead and hit yes. There you go.
At what point should my mouse be functioning as a mouse?
Once I install the drivers on it, once you get the install done.
Okay, I'm doing configuration now.
All right, you ready for me? Okay. Go take control.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ready for me to take control and install the mouse.
Thank you. That'll make it easier.
All right, Gordon, when it boots back up, it'll be all yours.
Thank you.
Rick, you have control over what?
That was Gordon. Who thinks I have controllers? Gordon, I just released control. Do you have control back?
Rick,
Yes.
do you have control over what?
No. I released it. Remember, you got to do it keyboard.
There's a C mouse on there and I can't do nothing.
Yeah, your mouse doesn't do anything. You have to use keyboard.
Oh, there it is, sorry.
Okay. Did you do reinstall already?
No, I'm still trying to get it.
Oh, okay. That's gonna boot off the. Remember, you hit the spacebar now because you got an operating system on it.
Yeah.
You gotta hit the spacebar when it comes up and says, "Are you rebooting?" Ooh, it's not even booting off the DV. We're gonna boot over set backwards. Easiest thing for you two guys to do is to cancel out and start back up. Because you're adding anything that, right? Because they got the boot order set wrong. And I can't change the boot order. Your best bet is just to cancel out of the lab and restore it. How'd you get into that? You want to set your boot order, you want to set this to... Go to boot. You move that one up, so how do you move it up? Notice. Oops. There you go. Now go ahead and hit F. And you want a down arrow? Oh, enter and save changes, hit enter. There you go. Oh, how you got into the boot? How you got into the boot menu? I'll have to figure that out. What's that?
Yes, Steve.
Getting into the BIOS on the virtual machine. Okay.
one, right?
Yep.
So we're going to install now?
You gotta hit tab. There you go. Now, hit your space bar to hit the accept. Oh, I'm sorry. Tab down to next. And then, there you go. You want the bottom one? Okay, no, don't hit. You want to hit tab, right? Use your arrow keys to cursor down. Oh, you gotta hit tab. Right, now, no cursor, no, tab, you hit tab one, okay, now arrow down. Oh, one more. Oh, one more. There you go. Hit tab, hit enter. Okay, hit enter. Okay, hit tab, there you go. Now hit your space bar. Oh, you clicked off of it. Right, space bar. There you go. Oh, you hit tab. You get to next. There you go. Right, hit enter. Tab. You hit next. And you hit enter. Right, your space bar. Right, your space bar. No, you're hitting your space bar, not your space bar. Hit tab. Get to here. Right, and then you hit. No. There you go. Right, hit enter. Okay. Push it around.
So we'll go.
And then there. And then you want to hit, just hit next, tab to next. Okay, down to next slide. Your next lit up, so you just hit enter. Or they had you 4 minutes, go ahead and just go down to 4 minutes.
So just hit enter.
Yep. The tab, your enter's not selected. Tab, not space, tab. Right, go ahead, you hit this. Right, you hit enter. Right, now hit your enter. Enter. There you go.
Supposed to be a partition?
Yeah, and the partition automatically. So go ahead and hit tab. Okay, now hit enter. That's installed.
Can I go through the commands to reboot the machine?
What's that? Who's
I
that?
missed the Huh?
Oh.
Can I go to commands, power, and reboot?
Why do you need to reboot?
Well, I'm at the 39 restart now, and I think I selected no, so it's not coming up.
Okay, let me see. Is that
Okay. Gord.
okay? No, you said escape. There we go. And
Oh, it came back.
yep. Yeah, you said escape. You hit control delete by accident. Yeah.
So where can I manually restart it here?
You can go down to your. Nope. Exit out of there. Your easiest way is go down to PowerShell, down at the bottom of the screen,
Yeah.
and just type restart dash computer.
Restart dash computer. Okay.
You're in your system properties. Close that.
Yeah. Oh, there we are.
Yep.
Must have popped behind then. Okay, I'm good.
Right. You have your mouse back, right, Gordon?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay. All tasks. Yes, all the exercises.
Having a connectivity phone on all of my machines. So I've done everything up to this point, going the XPS viewer to one surgery. I can't reach it. Oh.
Just because you can't ping it doesn't mean you can't reach it.
Yeah, but I can't, it says I can't play.
Yeah. The question is, did you join it to the menu? I can remember stuff how to do it.
Should have. That's why I followed it.
Go back to your local server. Right? Go back to run server 1 or run DC 1. Yeah, just because you can't ping it, it's SBR1, not SRD.
What's that?
It's SBR1, not SRD.
Nice.
Yeah, just because you can't ping it doesn't mean you don't have connectivity.
Eric, I'm at the server manager.
Okay. Let me, control. Paste things back to X. Take control. Machine. Close that. Close that.
And the command to do the control.
Speak. Next. Okay, as soon as it restarts, you will have control your machine.
Okay, thanks, sir.
You're welcome. Well, as soon as you get logged in, I'll be ready to take control of yours too. Right, I'm gonna take control of it. Okay, as soon as it restarts, it's all yours.
Just finish the lab, it's still saying, take a while for it to.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, I just.
Server, oh, okay, let's randomly generate. When you install the operating system, it randomly generates the computer when you install them.
That tells you right there.
Change. Yes. Uh-huh. Find it? Okay. Okay.
Change it. It's change.
Okay, I'm getting an error here, Rick.
All right?
When I'm trying to create the Lab 1 server group, it's coming up with an error.
All right, let me take a look.
Mm, 16.
Is that Chris?
I changed 600.
Gord.
Okay. I'm slowly getting to recognize your guys' voices. All right, you hit okay for me?
Names in the wrong place.
Okay.
Oh, you left it.
Was done.
Okay, never mind. Up at the top where it says server group name, you gotta give it a name.
Oh, I put it in the wrong spot.
There you go.
Okay, I put it down here.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matthew caught it before I did.
Because he did the same thing.
Oh, he says he did the same thing.
Okay.
Hard to see that box at the top because there's no outline.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's a box.
Yes.
Okay, Rick. Kind of lost here.
Right. Okay, open comment clock. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, notice it appears.
Oh.
Right. So go ahead. Right. And then go to the next step. Okay, this is open up the date and time box. There you go. Okay. Actually, you go back to hit cancel. You push it. You go change time zone. And it says, next one down. Set time zone.
Well,
And it says time zone to your current time zone, which is Arizona. Yep. The reason why I hit ready to go back, this one here. The one, next one. Right. Why are you not pinning it down? Oh, yeah, click on the one above it. You start server two. Yeah, click that down.
Yeah, I've been to it before.
There, just click, keep clicking down, till you get down to where you set the time zone.
It's
Again?
weird for me
Again?
because the
Yeah.
time zone is
Right. All right, hit done there. Now you're ready for the next step.
And I went to the order, ordering over there and.
That'd be the same.
Yep.
They're actually.
Okay.
So
now you done? You're done? Next step says, set date and time. What's it say? You set it to done. No, what's the same? Set it to.
Just know it.
Let's see.
No, what's it say? Read that. What's it say?
Okay.
No, read this. What does it say? What's the box say? What's the whole box say?
These things kind of interesting. I think they, at the
Right.
very beginning.
So is it the same time as what's in the classround? Behind you.
Yes.
Right? So that's okay? So that says, and click OK.
And then I realized.
Now click done.
Actually have.
Go to the next step. Next step is right here.
This, yeah.
It says close it, okay. You already did, you okay? It done?
Get some decent sleep.
Close off your server manager, go back to your desktop. No, just click on desktop. There's your server manager, you in server manager. Scroll back over to the right. It says access network connections. What's it say there? In step. No, what's it say in step?
Server manager console, local server. Server manager console.
It says click on that. Right, then I see, then now done. Yep, so you want- Right, now you hit done. This is the primary step, and this is the next step.
Yeah, I'm just getting it.
Then sometimes, right, like, in this step here, where it says set the IP address, it'll actually be it'll be the head. It'll tell you, set the IP address and the idea, and it'll be there.
Okay, thanks.
Just hang tight.
Yep, same type. Whenever you set, you take a break, whatever, right, you check back. If you don't allow, check in, you can take a break, but check back in every 5 minutes.
Chris here. I'm having a problem. I keep saying my SRV3 is not connected or not available.
Okay, it's SVR3, not SRV3.
I apparently accidentally named it that.
Are you sure, or are you doing it backwards?
And I did them backwards, or I named it SRV3.
All right, give me a second. I gotta get connected back to you. SRV3. Right. So what are you trying to do, Chris?
Well, I'm on the part out trying to do the control, but see, it says this is target computer's not accessible.
Let me go ahead. Go back to SRV3. Bounce that box. Go ahead and restart it.
Wasn't 101.
What's that? I'm gonna take control and restart your server, Chris.
Okay.
Oh, looks like you already did. Never mind. Now go back to DC1. Refresh that screen. We'll take control for a second. Hang on a second. There you go. I just done joined it, right? I just deleted and added it back to the group. Ready to go, Chris? All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Was that Jonathan who had a question? What's up? You're actually enabling those rules in the firewall. Yep. Oh, that's it. Remember when you're done, please mark yourself as being agreed, so I know you're done.
Continue. Rick,
Yes.
how do you find this?
What's that?
How do you find this activated machine icon?
Switch to the core box.
And we're doing all of that, right?
Click on it. Go to the core box. Yep. Now you're on the core box. Okay, so now you're on that machine. So you go in, so you get done, go to the next step. Okay, so you're actually, you go up to commands. Control delete to log into it.
What are we supposed to do after we're done? We're supposed to check something?
Nope, just waiting for everybody to get finished. There's
Okay.
still, 4 people, 5 people working. 4 people working.
You want to do the agree?
If you would. Yeah, up in the, Adobe Connect, where your status, mark agree, that lets me know you're done for that.
Ah, good. Done. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
I think it was actually somebody here that recommended that PowerShell book. I Googled it, what the best PowerShell book is, and that was that 30 lunches was
Yep,
a great book.
it is a great book.
Especially so it doesn't, dive you right into ridiculous stuff that's gonna go over your
Yeah.
head immediately.
Jonathan, which Navy were you in? The Canadian Navy or US? Wrong, I thought Jonathan was, who's in the Navy?
Me, Gord. I was Canadian.
Oh, Canadian, okay. I'm sorry, Gordon. I thought it was Jonathan said he was.
No, that's okay. All us Canucks look alike.
I'm not gonna go there. The, I'm gonna flip my coffee cup, I'll be right back. Okay, let me put one more year in class. So where you guys from this area?
No, New Mexico.
Right, New Mexico.
Yeah, I'm like there by Colorado, Central.
Oh, okay, northeastern corner.
Yeah.
I used to go up to, Los Alamos and
Yeah.
that area a lot.
Augusta Springs, were right next. Augusta Springs.
I used to go up there and do a lot of training up there.
Yeah.
Where you guys staying?
Wyndham. Wyndham?
Oh, right down the street here?
Yeah.
That's okay. I remember back certain times when you guys should try to catch a ball game.
I know, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we're trying to come in early yesterday, but couldn't.
You didn't want to go yesterday. Yesterday was a zoo. Yesterday they had, PetSmart opened up their, it's called the first ballpark ever to have what they call the Bark Park. And so on all Sunday home games, they have an area where people can bring their dogs to the ball game. And, tickets are $20 a person, $20 a dog. There were 800 dogs there yesterday, 853 dogs.
That's a lot
there
of
yesterday.
money.
Yeah,
There are 853 dogs there yesterday.
I did some work with Los Alamos.
Yeah, they tried to set a world record yesterday. They needed 999 dogs to set the world record. So Guinness was here yesterday. And
Thank you.
853. They had 300 people who didn't show up. So if everybody would have showed up, they're supposed to be there with their dogs, they probably would have set the record. My girl works for PetSmart, that's why I know. She's the executive assistant for their VP of digital productions. That's
I
up.
know that we have was a pool in the
Yep,
stadium here.
got a pool in there.
There's nowhere.
You can rent the pool out.
Yeah.
So we're doing all four of those, right?
Yeah, all four of the
Did you get a
exercises.
super soaker and?
Am I doing this one?
I don't know, I was standing over here. Nope, it's 13. Index 13. 1-3, type 1-3. Then in there.
Okay, so that's
There you go.
solution. Like,
Now, what I'm gonna do with you guys, because everyone else is done, right, and you guys about halfway through, I'm gonna put you guys on pause. I'm gonna teach for like 30 minutes, and then we'll start back to that. Okay? Is that okay with you guys? All
I
right.
don't know.
So we'll just.
I put
Yeah,
my
just let it run, because you got plenty of time. Your counter's still at hour and 49 minutes, so you got plenty of time. All right? Yeah, if you just want to minimize it. All right, questions about that lab? Now, again, I want to stipulate, that lab is the most frustrating lab of the course. Right? For 4 reasons. First reason, you've never touched Learn on Demand's environment before. Now, you have, but remember the first time you did it, right? Right? You've never touched the Learn on Demand environment before, right? So the environment's new, right? 1. Second reason, right? Second reason, navigating that interface, if you're not used to it, right, is not the easiest because you got steps here, you got steps down here, you got this little head that's got ideas that pop up, right? So which one am I supposed to be looking at, right? Then all of a sudden the done button goes away. Well, why did the done button go away? Because you skipped a step, right? So again, interface is confusing. Third reason, right? That's the most confusing, or the most difficult lab and frustrating lab in the course is, when was the last time you installed an operating system using a keyboard? All right? Trust me, I've complained to Learn on Demand time and time again, right? The only other option is to skip exercise 1, right? And then you lose out a quarter of the lab. So that's the reason why I had you do the lab, even though it's frustrating, right? And what's the fourth reason is? You might be working with an interface, right? Server 2012 that you've never ever touched before, right? Or sometimes Windows 8. You might be working with a Server 2012 or Windows 8 or a core interface that you've never ever touched before. So that, and I tell every class, right? I tell every class, that's the most frustrating lab of the course. That's the toughest lab of the course. You've made it past that lab. The rest of the labs are a piece of cake. Right? The rest of the labs are a piece of cake. And they work exactly the same in all the labs they just did. Okay? So what I want to do now is, right, first of all, are there any questions about the lab from anybody? Any questions? I like this about box time. He said, how like you to recommend Windows 10 to your ransom colleagues? Immensely. I love Windows 10. All right. So module number 2. Module 2 is, and I hate this term, they call it the Introduction to Active Directory. Right? They call it the Introduction to Active Directory. Let me show you real quick what they consider the overview of Active Directory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slides. And then what's new? Right? They come into this course with an impression that you just need a review of what Active Directory is. Guess what? Right? 8 out of 10 people come to this class, have heard of Active Directory, but don't have a clue, I'm not meaning this disrespectfully, but don't have a clue what Active Directory really is. So the fact that they teach this as a review, right, is hogwash. Right? One of the reasons why I don't do the IPv4 and the IPv6 stuff is so I can spend more time in Active Directory. That's what this course is all about, is administrating Active Directory. Right? It's kind of like, right, you want to build a house, but you don't know how to build a foundation. So you build this really, really crappy foundation because you don't know what you're doing. What's eventually going to happen to the house? Right? It's going to fall down, right? It's going to cave in on itself. Right? The rest of this course doesn't mean anything if you don't have a good foundation of Active Directory. So I usually spend about an hour on the very first slide of this module, which, according to Microsoft, oops, I would do that. Stop blinking. Right? According to Microsoft, you should know what everything is on that slide. Right? Most people don't. Right? So I teach it more as a, let's talk about, not more of an overview of Active Directory, what is Active Directory? So first of all, before we can get into what Active Directory is, right, we kind of have to have a discussion of, well, why do we have Active Directory? Why are we even here, right? It's kind of like, well, why do we have cars, right? Because horse-drawn carriages and horses weren't efficient enough. Well, why do they have horse-drawn carriages and horses? Because walking wasn't efficient enough. Right? Makes sense? Right? Why do we have airplanes? Because cars can't get us across the ocean. Well, they had ships. But ships took weeks. Now we can do it in hours. Right? Same thing along the lines of this thing called authenticating users. So if we go back in time a little bit, right? 1 or 2 days back in time, right? We would have a computer. This might be Bob's computer, right? Bob, right, runs this computer. He does everything on this machine. right? And then we had Sue's computer, right? So Bob was the king of his computer, Sue was the queen of her computer, right? And they controlled everything. But the problem was, if Bob had a resource that he wanted Sue to access, or Sue had a resource that she wanted Bob to access, right? Back in the early days, we had to put that on some type of removable media. And in the day, that was either 5.5-inch floppies, all right, 3.25-inch floppies, or 8-inch floppies. Now, anybody know why they called 5.25 and 3.5-inch floppies? They weren't really floppy. What's that?
Just the inside is.
The inside was floppy. And the original 8-inch floppies didn't have a case. They literally were floppy, right? So they called them floppy disks. So literally, I would take information and I'd put it on these floppy disks, could be multiple, and I had to hand carry that data between the two machines. Yes?
Sneaker net.
The sneaker net, right? By the way, I paid her to say that, right? The sneaker net, right? And that's actually what it was called for years, the sneaker net, okay? And that's how we exchanged the information. Then along come the late 70s, early 80s, right? The Open Systems Interconnect came out, the OSI model that was created, and I love this, the OSI was created by a group called the ISO, right? The International Standards Organizations, right? So the ISO created the OSI. This great group also created the IEEE standard. The IEEE standard came out with the 802 specifications. You might know what the 802 specifications are? 802.1, .2, .3, .4, .5, .6, right? 802.1, right, is logical, or is anything you want to put on a network, right? You have to, that's the 802.1, talks about what networks are. 802.2 talks about logic link control, right? You have Ethernet, you have Apple Talk, you have all the different connectors. 802.3 is Ethernet, right? 802.4 was token bus, 802.5 is token ring, right? So you had all these different specifications. These specifications told you how long the cabling could be, how the data went on the wire, what the connectors look like, right? Going to like 802.30 something now, right? 802.30. It's a constantly evolving document. Some of the documents don't change, like token ring and token bus, right? They've basically been closed down things. Even though people still use them, there's no changes made to them. TIFI implemented that citywide wireless a year or so ago, 18 months ago. 802.26 is what controlled that, right? For municipalities to set up wireless for people. So that's what these 802 specifications for. Anybody know why they called it 802? There's a reason.
Like August 2nd or something?
You're close. Right? 1980, February. Right? February 1980 is when they create the very first 802.1 spec. Right? Again, these brilliant engineers. 802.1, or 802, based on February 1980. The OSI based off a group called the ISO. Right? So anyway, around the 1980s time frame, right? Around the 1980s time frame, you start seeing things like Apple computers coming out, IBM computers coming out, Commodore. Remember Commodore computers, right?
I had an Atari 800.
Right, Atari 800. Right, I had an Atari SX64. That's the one that was like a suitcase, right? It had a little 5-inch screen on it, the little 5.5-inch floppy. You carried around like 50 pounds, right? One of the first portable computers. But those were all starting to come out there around that time frame. So it gave us the ability to start sharing information amongst these machines. So, right, basically we were able to connect the two machines via a wire, right? But here was the problem, right? By standard, now nobody followed this, but by standard, right? If Sue had a resource she wanted to share with Bob, or Bob had a resource he wanted to share with Sue, right? They were supposed to create a user account on their machine for the other person with a different password than what they used on the machine they normally logged on with. So Bob would create an account for Sue, they wouldn't call it Sue, right? And create a password for Sue. Sue would create a user account for Bob, couldn't call it Bob because that's what Bob's logged on his own machine with, and create a password for Bob. Well, we all know that end users like pet rocks, right? They can't remember more than one user ID and more than one password, right? If they do, they start writing it down on the bottom of their keyboards and sides of their computers and stuff, right? So back in this day when this was called a peer-to-peer environment or a work group environment, right, there was basically zero security, right? you were supposed to have a different user ID and password in each individual machine you connected to. Every machine you connected to was supposed to be a different user ID and password. There's no way of controlling anything, right? Absolutely zero way of controlling anything, right? And they also came out and said, right, this work group environment or peer-to-peer environment had a maximum number of machines that could be in it. If you were taking a Microsoft curriculum, the number was 10. If you were taking a non-Microsoft curriculum, the number was 13. I don't know how CompTIA and Unix and Linux, right, got 13 computers when Microsoft could only get 10, right? But depending on which exam you took, you actually had to, right? I'm taking a Microsoft exam, the answer is 10. I'm taking a non-Microsoft exam, the answer is 13. Literally, it was that bad. Right? Microsoft actually hard codes, even today, on work group or on workstations. In other words, Windows 10, Windows 8.1, Windows 8, Windows 7, Vista, right? XP, right? If you have one of those operating systems, they actually hard code right into the operating system in connections, right? You log on, you count as one. So if you share something on that machine, only 9 people can be connected to that resource at the same time, right? Only 9. If a 10th person tries to come in, somebody's got to disconnect for the next person to come in. That's hard coded right into the OS, right? If you're on a server, right, it's not hard coded. If you're on a server, it's not hard coded because basically you have a limited amount of people connecting based on your licensing, So Microsoft actually built that in. Well, the problem we had was right, zero security, right, multiple user IDs and passwords, right? Also the no centralized administration, no universal access to resources, none of that. So along comes NT351, NT351, creating this, what they called a client-server environment. Now, most people didn't deal with 351, so we're going to talk about NT4L. Right? NT4L was the same client-server environment. Just think of it was NT351 version 2, right? But they called it NT4L. So in NT4L, right, these could be NT4L workstations, or these could be NT4L servers, right? Not 95, not 98, not, I'm going to say another bad word, ME, right? Okay? But these were NT4.0 workstations or servers, right? I built an NT4.0 server, and when I built it, I told it was going to be a domain controller. And there was an option, a PDC or BDC. We'll talk more about PDCs and BDCs a little bit later, but my first one I created, I built this as a domain controller. Now, here's the advantage of this as a domain controller. Inside this domain controller, you have the H key, local machine key. Inside that, you had the SAM key, right? Security Accounts Manager. Inside here, all these computers would create a computer account. So when the computer started up, the computer had to authenticate to this domain database. Then, when Bob or Sue logged on, they had to authenticate to that database. So by creating this NT4.0 domain environment, this client-server environment, Microsoft basically killed 3 things with one stone. The first thing they killed was single user ID and password, right? Because my user ID and password are now being stored in the domain database, as long as the computer was a member of the domain, I can log onto that machine using that one user ID and password. The second thing it accomplished was centralized administration. I can now administrate all my users and computers from that one machine, or that a domain controller. Now there could be multiple domain controllers. The third advantage it gave to me was universal access to resources. No matter how large my environment got, right, I could access a resource based off my one user ID and password as long as the appropriate permission, privilege, or right was set. So a whole bunch of things came about because of that. But here's the problem. Okay? Where did I say the database was stored? Where? In the domain controller, but specifically where in the domain controller? In the registry. Now, some of us are old enough that might be remember this, right? Back in 1998, there was this really, really bad bug that went around. Right? And it'll make more sense here in a minute about this really, really bad bug. Anybody remember from your A+ classes? What's the maximum size of a registry in a registry-based operating system, which includes today's OSs? Devin knew at one point, and I see her going, oh, I knew that.
I took the test around that time, so I'm trying.
Right? The max size of your registry is 108 megabytes. That's the max size of the registry. So if your registry gets bigger than 108 megabytes, you get the proverbial blue screen of death that says registry too big. For those of you who've been around for a while, you might remember back in 1998, there was this really nasty bug that went around. It just devastated Windows 95, 98, and ME machines because there was no such thing as an administrator account. You logged onto a 9X machine, you were an administrator, period. And if you got this bug on your machine, it became a self-replicating key in the registry. It just kept replicating itself until eventually it would get to 108.1 megabytes, boom, blue screen of death. If you were logged onto an NT-based box, as long as you weren't logged on as an admin, the bug didn't do anything. But if you were logged onto the machine as an admin, guess what happened? Jump, boom.
You would kill him?
So Microsoft had to come up with a maximum size that our SAM database could be, so we didn't overload the registry, so we didn't get the big blue screen of death. So what they did is they said the SAM had a max size of 40 megabytes. That was as large as you could go. Well, for most of us, 40 megabytes was more than adequate, because this is what a 40 megabyte SAM could handle. 26,000 users, 26,000 computers, broken up into 10 logical groups. How many users, computers you got in your environment? Right? Yours, I know you guys got quite a few, but I don't think you're near 26,000 now. Okay? For most organizations, this worked. But you get in organizations like GE, right? HP, so the other government agencies, the national laboratories, right? The federal government, state government, Department of Defense. They got a heck of a lot more than that. So what we've seen happening in these large-scale organizations, and I won't use any names specifically, right? You saw this happening. An account domain where they could put 46,000 users in computer, 46,000 users now, and they built a resource domain. And that's where all the computer objects were. And then they set a trust relationship. So the users in this domain can access the computers in this domain and get authenticated. Well, wait a minute. So I got 46,000 computers, 46,000 users. Worked for most organizations, but we saw some organizations doing this. Oh, we got more than 26,000 users. With all those lines being trust relationships. Can we see a nightmare starting to occur here? There's an organization I worked with over in New Mexico from 1999 to about 2004 timeframe. Had 184 of those resource domains. And they had 3 account domains. Because they had almost 70,000 users. Can we see a nightmare occurring here? Where the nightmare really occurs is, right, all users are supposed to be in the account domain, right? But I'm a resource admin. I say, you know what? I ain't going to put my user account in the account domain. I put it in my domain. Oh, by the way, right? Matthew, I'm going to put your account in my account domain so you don't have to worry about the master domain. Right? Lee, I'm going to create your user account in my domain so you don't have to worry about the master domain. So now we start seeing another problem starting to occur. Now all of a sudden, right, over in Devin's domain, there's a resource I need to access, and I don't want to use my domain, my account from the account domain because I have access over it. So, hey Devin, can you trade a trust relationship from my domain to your domain so I can access your resource? Right? And then Emery does that. Then John does this. Chris comes over and does this. What an utter nightmare. All because of this limitation. So what do we do in Active Directory? Right? So in Windows, about 1998, 98, early 99, Microsoft started pushing this thing called Active Directory. Right? They stopped using the word domain-based environments. They started using the term Active Directory. Well, the first thing they did is they moved the database out of the registry. Right? They moved it out of the registry. Right? So they created this thing called the data store. Right? The data store. Now, in Active Directory, we have logical components of Active Directory and physical components of Active Directory. I'm going to talk about the physical side for just a minute, and then we'll go to the logical side. We'll do all the logical side, and then we'll come back to the physical. Of course, we're not going to get through all this today. Right? So Microsoft came out and said, we're going to do this thing called a data store. And that's one of the physical components of Active Directory. Right? The actual name of this data store is called ntds.dit. Okay? The New Technologies Directory Services.dit file. This .dit file is an X500 database. Oops. BD. How about, wow, that's a big oil eraser. All right, it's an X500 database. It's an X500 database, which is nothing more than a lightweight directory access protocol database, which is nothing more than a JET database. It's the exact same database Access uses, the exact same database Excel uses, the exact same database that DNS uses, the exact same database that DHCP uses, the exact same database that Wins uses. Right? So it's not a new data, it's not a new concept. The concept of how we used it to authenticate users is what came new. And for those of you that do Novell, this is not Microsoft's build. Right? Novell created a directory service first. And if you talk to a Microsoft engineer, they're going to deny this, but Microsoft actually bought rights from Novell, right, to build their initial Active Directory structure. Now, of course, they changed names, so it wasn't the same names as Novell. But if you're a Novell engineer, you'll see there's a lot of things that look the same. A lot of things that look the same. Make sense? Right? So where do they store this database? I can't tell you. I have to shoot you. No. By default, it's in the Windows NTDS folder. That's not where it has to be. When you install Active Directory, you can tell it where you want the database to be. Right? You can tell it where the database should be. Right? But by default, it's in the Windows NTDS folder. Right? So that's the database. Now, this database is made up of what they call containers. Some people call them partitions. Now, we've all seen Excel before. We've all used Excel. Yeah? You know, in Excel, you can create an Excel workbook. And then in the workbook, you can have individual sheets. Think of the Access Your Active Directory database as an Excel workbook with those sheets. Each one of those partitions is equivalent to one of those sheets.
As much as they have.
And the pitch down and in.
And there's 5 partitions.
With the
so there's 5 sheets.
As much as they have.
And the pitch down and in for ball 1.
Let's envision we have Excel on this machine over here. Right? So it has the 5 sheets. We install Excel over here and we take the same workbook and put it on this machine. Which means this machine now has exactly the same 5 sheets that this machine has. So far, so good? I'm not going to say specifically which sheets yet, but some of these sheets will be editable or writable on both machines. Some of the sheets are only writable on this machine. Right? Makes sense? Because we have the ability to write them on both machines, it's referred to as a multiple master model. A multiple master model. We don't synchronize in a multiple master model. We synchronize in a primary secondary model. We replicate in a multiple master model. So both of these machines have writable copies. We replicate the changes going both ways. Make sense? Now, The database really isn't like Excel, because Excel can't do that, right? But that's the easiest analogy I have of what this database really looks like if you could really look at the database. I actually had a student, 3 or 4 classes, goes, yes, it can, Excel can do that. I'm like, no, it can't. Yes, it can. If you use an Office 365, it can. Okay, Office 365, Excel can do that. Okay? Most people would never use it for that, but it can. I checked it. Of course, I had to go check to make sure they were right. And yeah, Office 365 version of Excel can have a workbook on 2 machines and have writable copies, and it synchronizes the database between. I don't care. Right? Normal Excel can't do that. Right? So we're looking at the database. The database is made up of these things called partitions. We just talked about them. And there's 5 partitions. I want to get through the partitions before we go home today, and then we'll call it a day. So it'll probably be about 10 to 15 minutes, right, for me to get through the partitions of the database. Because you have to understand the database, because the database is used to define all the other logical sides of Active Directory. If you don't understand how the database is made up, everything else on that left-hand side, after you get past schema, won't make any sense. So we have the database. The first partition or container in the database is called the schema. The schema partition. Right? Now, the schema partition has what's called classes and attributes. Classes and attributes. Every object you can create in the Active Directory database has an associated class in the schema. All the properties that you can configure for that object are attributes. So if you think about it, if I go create a user object on a domain controller, there's a class called user. And every one of those property fields, all 100 plus, are equivalent to an attribute. Make sense? In the default schema in Server 2000, there were 936 predefined classes. And there were 1,300 plus predefined attributes. As Active Directory has changed over the years, right, there's a lot more classes in the database, or in the schema, and a lot more attributes in the schema. If you install an Active Directory web application, most of the time you've got to modify the schema to support whatever those classes or attributes are for whatever that Active Directory or app is. Okay? Think of the schema as the blueprint for any object I can create. No matter how large I get, there's only one schema. Right? That schema is then replicated at every domain controller in the environment. No matter how large I get, there's only one schema. Okay? Folks, if you corrupt your schema, you lose Active Directory. Plain and simple. You corrupt your schema, you lose AD. You corrupt your schema and you lose AD, that's probably going to be an RPE. All right? For that reason, there's only one group of people that can modify the schema. There's a group in Active Directory called schema admins, and they're the only people who can modify the schema. If you're not in that group, you can't modify it. Right? In the early days of Active Directory, there was a 3-day Active Directory design class. And there was in that class, they talked about there's a schema management team that you should create that includes like 6 or 8 people that needed to be on that team to determine whether or not, anytime you want to make modifications to the schema, whether or not those modifications really were warranted. Right? Microsoft doesn't go down that path anymore because too many companies fought back and said, you and I create a team of 6 or 8 people just to make a change to the schema? Well, yeah, but yeah, right. So Microsoft stopped teaching that. So, okay? So again, no matter how large I get, there's only one schema. The second partition in the database is called the configuration. The configuration, right? The configuration container has Active Directory site information, Active Directory, subnet information, and domain controller connection objects. Okay. So when I add a domain controller or remove a domain controller from the environment, it directly edits the configurations container. If I identify an Active Directory site, and we'll talk about sites a little bit later, when I identify an Active Directory site, it directly modifies the configurations container. When I identify a subnet in Active Directory, right, it directly modifies the configurations container. The configurations container is used for replication. Right? It controls replication inside the Active Directory environment. Right? No matter how large I get, there's only one configurations container. It's writable on every single domain controller in the environment, but no matter how large I get, there's only one. So if that container gets corrupted, I also lose Active Directory. The third container is called the domain container. The domain container. The domain container is going to contain user objects, computer objects, group policy objects. Anything that's specific to that domain is in that domain container. Right? Anything that's specific to that domain is in that domain container. Now, they will call this a security database. Right? They have a common security database, the domain database. Even though domain is not a security boundary, they'll call this a security database. All the computers inside of the domain share this domain container. This domain container is replicated to all domain containers that are part of the same domain. Right? So there is one per domain. Right? The next partition is the applications partition. Okay. If you have Active Directory aware applications, Exchange, DFS, SharePoint, right? If you have an Active Directory aware application, that application can utilize Active Directory's replication topology. And it can store its data in a partition in Active Directory instead of inside of a separate partition. DNS is an example. We'll see that tomorrow, right? AD aware apps, right? Have an applications partition. Microsoft introduced the applications partition in Server 2003 AD. Right? 2000 had the ability to create applications partitions, but they didn't call them applications partitions in 2003. Right? This really came, I'm sorry, in 2000. This really came about in 2003. Right? One per app. Now, remember I said there was 5 partitions in the database? Those are the 4 that everybody agrees on. Those are the 4 that everybody agrees on. The next one, right? You read 10 books. 5 of the books will tell you what I'm about ready to tell you is in the Active Directory database, it's part of the partitions, and 5 of the books will tell you it's not. I am under the belief it is. Right? They will never ask you in an exam whether this is part of the Active Directory database or not. Right? They won't ask you that. Right? Even though if you look at replication and you look at the database, it's a partition in the database. All right? There's a thing called the global catalog. Right? And a thing called the global catalog. No matter how large I get, there's only one global catalog. There may be multiple servers that maintain the global catalog, But it's the same catalog regardless of what server you're on. I should say. There may be multiple domain controllers that have a catalog, right? But again, right, it's only one catalog. The global catalog maintains all objects from all trusted domains with a subset of attributes. So the question always comes up, what do you mean by subset of attributes? I can't search on your password. There's no reason for it to be in the catalog. I can't search on your security identifier. There's no reason for it to be in the catalog. I can't search on your globally unique identifier. There's no point in it being in the catalog. Those items that I can't search on aren't in the catalog. There's no point in bloating the catalog with stuff I can't search on. Now, if you so desire and you want the password to be in the catalog, you can modify the schema to say that you want the password attribute to be stored in the catalog. Can't do anything with it, but it's your choice if you want it there. Make sense? Right? And this is where the argument comes to play, is whether or not it's part of the database or not. No matter how large I get, there's only one catalog. There may be multiple catalog servers, but there's only one catalog. Right? Make sense? You have to understand the Active Directory database, because this database, or partitions or containers in the database, are used to describe every single logical component of AD. And if you don't understand the partitions or the containers in the database, it makes the defining the logical sides of AD really, really tough. Right? Make sense? Questions?
He was asking, Jonathan was asking if the database, the global catalog is in clear text.
No, it's not. No, the database is not in clear text. It's the same way as the rest of the database. Right? It's just like the rest of the database. It's not clear text. But the issue with the database is everybody has to have the ability to read Active Directory. Right? So any user can actually launch any one of the Active Directory tools and read Active Directory. They have to have that ability to read Active Directory to be able to authenticate. We're going to see, I will show you, right, ways of doing things like, let's say first you have printers and you only want members of management to see a certain set of printers. I'm going to show you how you can hide them from everybody else. Right? That's not part of the course, but I always show that. Or you have printers that are high-end for marketing and advertisement, and they cost gazillion dollars to print to it, and you don't, the everyday person, send in a picture to it. So you don't want them to be able to find it. So I'm going to show you how to set permissions, so if a person doesn't have permissions to use it, they don't see it in the catalog. Make sense? Right? So anyone that has the ability to log into Active Directory has the ability to query the catalog. Query the catalog. Right? But the catalog is not clear text. It's not clear text. Right? Because it's stored in the rest of the database. Right? Questions? Comments? Right? For timing purposes, right? I normally get down to here when I'm describing Active Directory. We've already done the schema, right? So whatever mountains, domain trees, and forests, that's how long we're behind tomorrow. We're probably behind 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm not worried about 15, 20 minutes. Okay? Instead of getting out at 1 o'clock Friday, you'll get out at 1:30. Yes?
So if a typical end user only needs the ability to authenticate and get the SAM for their machine, why does Windows inherently allow them to query the rest of the database?
For the global catalog. Mainly for the global catalog. Right? And that's just because Microsoft doesn't know what OU you're going to be placing object into. Right? So because it doesn't know where you're placing a user account or a computer account, the authenticated user has read on the entire OU Active Directory structure.
Change that by a GPO.
Not by a GPO. You would change it through the delegation tab or the security tab inside AD, inside Active Directory user computers or the administrative center. And that's one of the things I show you. In module number 3, right, they talk about how to delegate administrative control of OUs, right? And I'll show you that. I don't show you the one they do. They show help desk for resetting passwords. I do something a little bit more than help desk because I hate you to help desk in the lab. Right? I'll do something a little more cooler than that. Right? Questions? What was that, Jonathan? And what it allows us to do is, let's say, all objects from all trusted domains will be in there, so the entire first will be in there. So what it allows us to do, let's say I want to find, I know there's a user inside the corporation, we're a worldwide corporation. I know the name is Rick Trader, but I don't know their address, I don't know their phone number, I don't know their email address, I don't know their website, right? Depending on what information we populate in the user object, all that information is also populated in the catalog. So what it allows a user to do is just query the global catalog for a user named Rick Trader. Then it comes back and may show me Rick Trader's email address or Rick Trader's phone number, Rick Trader's mail address, whatever information that's we've populated from the user object will be in that catalog. Right? Passwords are still hashed, but we don't store the password in the global catalog. I mean, that's one of the attributes that's not stored in there, right? Yeah, the password would be in the catalog, but it would not be clear text. It still would be hashed. Yep, correct. And to keep in mind, in order to change that attribute to be stored in the catalog, schema admin has to make that change. The average user can't make that change. Only members of the schema admins can go in and change the attribute to say store in the catalog. And that's usually going to be someone high up, right? Really, really high up, probably just short of an enterprise admin. Okay, and I don't know what you changed, Jonathan, but you've gotten muffled this afternoon also. This morning you were really, really clear, but I had to really, really listen hard to figure out what it was you were saying. And a couple people in the classes were like, so you're muffled this afternoon. Right? Okay. No, you can ask questions, right? I'm not saying don't ask questions. I'm just saying you were muffled. All right. But if you're going to type questions, then I'm going to ask Devin because she's got the meeting up. Anytime you ask a question, just right? Or at least you don't have to read. Just let me know questions. In there, right? And that's for anybody. If you see someone type a question in, right? Let me know a question's in there. You don't got to read it. I can go look, but I don't always see up on the board up there a question in. Devin, they're all giving you smiley faces. Right?
No. He called me Deb. I get called Debbie all the time on the phone. So.
Oh, okay. Right? I won't call you Debbie. I don't want to get hit.
It's cool because that's my mom's name. It's really.
Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Tomorrow morning when we get here at 8 o'clock, we'll start precisely at 8 o'clock, and I will start off with finishing up with domains, using that as the definitions. All right? Questions? All right. For remotes, if you log out of the meeting, that way I know you're gone. To log out, all you do is hit the X. That closes you out.